We are told that the money in our pocket is backed by the full faith and credit of the government. We are told that gold is a barbaric relic, a relic of a bygone era, and that our modern flexible financial system is a mark of progress. This is the official story, but the truth is far darker. The story of 20th century money is not one of progress. It is the story of a slow, deliberate, and secret war waged by governments against the one thing that guaranteed their citizens financial freedom. It is the story of a heist that took place over 40 years, a systematic dismantling of sound money designed to replace discipline with debt and value with control. This wasn't an evolution. It was a coup, a financial coup against the people. This channel uncovers the playbooks of the powerful. If you believe in understanding the system you are forced to live in, then hit that subscribe button now. Because to understand the world of 2025, you must first understand the war on gold. Before this war began, the world operated on a simple, powerful principle: the gold standard. Money wasn't just a piece of paper with a politician's face on it. It was a claim check. Every dollar, pound, or franc in circulation was a promise, a contract that it could be redeemed for a specific physical amount of gold held in a treasury vault. This system was not perfect, but it served one crucial function. It acted as a golden anchor, a fiscal straitjacket on the ambitions of the state. A government could not simply print money to fund endless wars or lavish social programs. If it printed more paper promises than it had gold to back them, its own citizens and other nations could call its bluff, demand the physical gold, and expose the fraud. Gold forced discipline. It limited debt. It was a check on power. And for those very reasons, it had to be destroyed. The first major offensive in this war was launched on April 5, 1933. The United States was in the depths of the Great Depression, and President Franklin D. Roosevelt had a problem. To fund his massive New Deal programs, he needed to spend, and to spend, he needed to devalue the dollar. The gold standard stood in his way. His solution was one of the most tyrannical acts in American financial history. Executive Order 6102. This order did not request. It demanded that every American citizen surrender all of their privately held gold coins, bullion, and gold certificates to the Federal Reserve. This was not a voluntary buyback. It was confiscation at gunpoint. The penalty for refusal was a $10,000 fine and up to 10 years in prison, a crippling sum equivalent to over $250,000 today. The government turned its own citizens into criminals for the simple act of owning real money. Once the public's gold was safely in its vaults, the government revealed its true motive. It immediately revalued the price of gold from $20.67 to $35 an ounce. In a single stroke of a pen, the US dollar was devalued by nearly 70%. It was a massive, instantaneous theft of purchasing power from every person who had complied with the order. The second act of this heist took place in 1944, as World War II drew to a close. The world's economies were in ruins and a new financial order was needed. At a resort in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, the United States, now the world's sole economic superpower holding 2/3 of the world's gold, laid out a new plan. The Bretton Woods system was a masterful illusion. The US dollar would become the world's reserve currency. It alone would be pegged to gold at the rate of $35 an ounce. All other currencies would be pegged to the dollar. The world was told that the dollar was as good as gold. This gave the United States what has been called an exorbitant privilege. It could print paper dollars to fund its ambitions: the Great Society social programs at home, the Cold War and the Vietnam War abroad. And the rest of the world was forced to accept these paper dollars as if they were real gold. The US could export its inflation, and the world had little choice but to import it. By the 1960s, the illusion began to crack. The The U.S. was printing far too many dollars to fund the Vietnam War. The world was flooded with American paper while the pile of gold in Fort Knox remained the same, or even shrank. Nations began to get nervous. They started to see the game for what it was. The leader of this awakening was President Charles de Gaulle of France. He famously condemned America's exorbitant privilege and decided to call the bluff. He began sending French naval ships to New York Harbor, offloading France's surplus U.S. dollars and demanding physical gold in return, as was his right under the Bretton Woods Agreement. Other nations like Germany and Switzerland saw what was happening and quietly followed suit. A slow, silent run on the U.S. Treasury had begun. The golden anchor, which the U.S. had used to chain the world, was now dragging its own ship down. The crisis came to a head on the evening of August 15, 1971. The United States was hemorrhaging gold. Its promise to the world was about to be broken. President Richard Nixon addressed the nation on television. In a speech filled with talk of fighting speculators, he announced that he was temporarily suspending the convertibility of the dollar into gold. Let's be clear about what this was. This was a sovereign default. The United States government officially announced to the world that it would no longer honor its most sacred financial promise. That temporary suspension is now over 50 years old. On that day, the last official link between money and gold was severed. The war was over. The governments had won. The world entered the age of pure fiat currency. Money backed by nothing but government decree, political promises, and military power. So why does this 50-year-old betrayal matter so much in October 2025? Because every major financial problem we face today is a direct consequence of that act. The final victory in the war on gold unleashed the era of permanent trillion-dollar government deficits. It enabled the endless cycles of money printing now called quantitative easing. It is the direct parent of the chronic corrosive inflation that has silently stolen the purchasing power from your salary and your savings for your entire life. The financial instability, the boom and bust cycles, the feeling that you are working harder just to stay in the same place. This is not a bug in the current system. It is the system operating exactly as designed after the golden anchor was deliberately cut away. The secret war on gold was never about progress or convenience. It was about power. By separating money from the discipline of a tangible asset, governments unshackled themselves. They gave themselves a blank check, drawn on the future labor and savings of their citizens. You have been paying the price ever since. Understanding this history is the first step toward financial sovereignty. Gold is not just a shiny metal. It is the historical antithesis to the government's monopoly on money. Recognizing why they fought so hard to destroy its role is the key to thinking outside the system they have built. If this gave you a new perspective on the very nature of your money, then join the conversation. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. History has the answers, and I'll show you where to look.